Hello and good morning. My name is Savonne Pearson, and welcome back to the Forgotten Bunch series. I was first made aware of this case by a subscriber when I posted the first episode talking about Malaysia Booker. To be real with y'all, I wasn't expecting to feel so drained after making that episode, just watching her video, and it's like I can watch Law & Order SVU all day, but when it comes to real life cases affecting people that's in my community, it's like sad. However, I've just decided to spread out my editing and shooting schedule so that it doesn't all have to weigh on me at once. In the first episode, I talked about doing an episode on Chanel Lindsay. That one is coming. I actually plan on doing a longer piece on her because when I was researching, I found that she actually went to my high school. Just to think that she walked the same halls as me, she probably had the same teachers as me, and just to think that she's just gone, it just felt so personal and so close. Honestly, it all just started to weigh so heavy on my heart, and I just had to step away. Nonetheless, I am back to tell these stories because, again, they are important. So I've decided that I'm going to have an episode of this series for you every other Friday. In between, I'm going to start uploading a series that I'm super excited to share with you guys. It's going to be based off of Alice Miller's book, The Drama of a Gifted Child, and it basically talks about how childhood traumas manifest in your adulthood, which I'm very passionate about, and I want to share my story as well as share with other people who can relate to that. So just look out for that series. That'll be probably uploaded next Friday. All right, so I think that's all I have for updates. Without further ado, we're going to get straight into the episode. So today we're going to be set in New York around June of 2019. Meet Layleen Polanco. I also wanted to show her full name, so I'll put it on the screen for you. She was a 27-year-old Afro-Latinx transgender woman from Yonkers, New York. According to actress and trans activist Indya Moore, hey girl, Indya tweeted, "I grew up looking to Layleen as my goal. She was one of the most beautiful women I ever seen who was trans. She and so many other girls were an example to me. She was a member of my house extravaganza. She died in her cell in Rikers. 10th trans woman. She was a member of her house, the House of Extravaganza, which is a ballroom collective led by Mother Giselle Extravaganza. Fun fact, this is the same House of Extravaganza that was featured in the documentary Paris is Burning. If you don't know what balls are, the show Pose displays them perfectly. Or at least I think, because Pose is really the only knowledge I have of New York balls. I absolutely love the show, and I hope to one day be on set with the crew. According to Layleen's sister, Melanie Brown, Layleen was usually very bubbly. However, Melanie recounted in the weeks leading up to her going to jail, she was seemingly very depressed. Melanie told Vogue she tried to look for jobs, she tried to go to school, she tried to just get her life together. As a trans woman of color, Layleen, of course, faced many hardships. I mean, she had 3 things stacked against her. For 1, she's a woman. For 2, she's a woman of color. And for 3, she's a trans woman of color. She was having a hard time finding employment, and her sister stated that she was turned away from every door she tried to walk into. Wow. On April 13, 2019, Layleen was arrested on misdemeanor charges. She was reportedly accused of biting a cab driver. She was held on a $500 bail, and she was getting ready to be released. However, she never left incarceration. So apparently Layleen had been arrested before in 2017. Now wait till you hear this story. Apparently she was the victim of a sting by NYPD. She allegedly got in the car with an undercover cop and agreed to perform oral sex in exchange for money. So they caught her on a prostitution charge and a low-level drug charge. So because of that charge, she was held on bench warrants, which here I'll pull up the definition so that you guys can know what that means. So bench warrants are warrants that are issued when an individual does not appear in court. So she did not appear in court for those charges that she had in 2017. But the kicker is she literally only missed 1 or more classes that she was mandated to go to by the Manhattan Human Trafficking Court's diversion program. So after all of that, according to her family lawyer, David Shaney's, the $500 bail stayed there. She couldn't pay the bail, and so she was sent to the Rose M. Singer Center for Women on Rikers Island about 3 days later. So while she stayed at Rikers, she was staying in the transgender housing unit dorm. Fast forward to May 14th, Layleen got into an altercation with a fellow inmate and allegedly assaulted her. That was about a week later, and she was sentenced to solitary confinement after that. The next day, on May 15th, she started experiencing psychological effects and hallucinations, and she started having some sort of mental break. Reports say she was having panic attacks and she was feeling suicidal. I can imagine. So in the report of what happened, an officer wrote in that she was heard randomly shouting and crying. So while she was distressed and going through all of that, she reportedly assaulted an officer by really just on the arm by having her fist out, from what I believe. After that, she was sent to the Elmer's Hospital and checked in for psychosis and mania. She stayed there for 9 days, 8 of which she was in the psychiatric prison ward. On May 24th, she returned to Rikers. However, the leaders were kind of iffy about where to send her. So Rose M. Singer, she's the department tour commander. She wrote that a psychiatrist could not authorize her being in solitary confinement because she had a seizure disorder, because she had previously had seizures while staying in the prison. However, after some clearance from a doctor in the jail, she was placed back in solitary confinement. And the worst thing is, when they were debating where they should put her, they decided they shouldn't put her back in the transgender ward because she got into a fight with an inmate. Okay, fine. After that, they said she definitely can't go into the ward with the cisgender females because they believed it was going to create an increased pressure to isolate her. So then they consider putting her in the men's ward. The men's ward? So after all that, she was cleared by the doctors at the jail and she was sent back to solitary confinement, where she sat there 17 hours a day in her cell. That same jail doctor wrote that she had been stable throughout her stay, so it was fine for her to be in solitary confinement. On June 7, 2019, Layleen had her third seizure while in custody. She was found unresponsive in her cell, and to this day, her family and the world are confused as to how she died and how she was left unattended like that. The New York City Department of Correction reported that a custodial staff tried to revive her when they found her. They tried CPR and then a you guys know what I'm saying, defibrillator, before a member of the medical staff came in, but by the time they got there, she was pronounced dead by 3:45. The New York City Department of Correction tweeted out, "The department is investigating the tragic death of a transgender female detainee in our custody. We take this matter extremely seriously. We have so far determined the death was not the result of violence or foul play. We will share more information as we determine the cause." No, it definitely was not the result of violence or foul play, but it definitely was the result of neglect. In July of 2019, the autopsy came back that she reportedly had sudden unexpected death and epilepsy due to a mutation. So in that case, they ruled it in the manner of a natural death. They knew that she had epilepsy and they still decided to place her in an area where she would have no type of supervision. June 5th, 2019, Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark spoke on the investigation, stating that they found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing. She explained that the investigation was not to determine whether it was a wrong decision to place her in punitive segregation while she was suffering from a documented seizure disorder, but it is to determine whether that decision rose to the level of criminal behavior. Okay. And the worst part of this one is that in all of these reports, they dead named her. And if you don't know what dead naming is, that is when a person uses the name that the person used to go by before they transitioned. I'm now going to read the official statement that Layleen's family released. "We are heartbroken over the death of our beloved Layleen, whose bright light was an inspiration to all who knew her. As we gather to mourn this tremendous loss, we are left shocked and outraged by the stony silence from the Department of Corrections, Mayor's Office, NYPD, and city government. Just days ago, Mayor de Blasio dedicated a monument to 2 pioneering transgender activists, telling the trans community that we are sending a clear message. We see you and we will protect you. The city failed to protect Layleen and is now trying to sweep her death under the rug. We will not allow it." June 10, 2020, a full year later, the police came out with a statement saying that there was going to be no criminal charges filed in the death of Layleen Polanco. On June 13th, 2020, new footage was released right outside of Layleen's cell. That footage showed that guards waited 90 minutes before calling for help. In the footage, you can also see that the officers opened the door and began laughing while calling out her name, while she lay there dead. David Shanies reported that the video was the last piece of the puzzle, and he said that in a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of New York and Rikers staff, he said it's the last bit of indifference to her life that we saw and recklessness to a person who obviously needed help. Even through all of that, I do have a good update for you guys. On June 29th, 2020, it has been released that a group of correctional officers will be facing charges. Well, I don't really know about charges. I would say more so disciplinary action. 17 New York City correctional officers, including a captain, will be held accountable and will be disciplined for their roles in the death of Layleen. Mayor Bill de Blasio said that the captain and 3 other officers had been suspended without pay immediately for their conduct. A year later, immediately. They said, amongst other things, the board said that rather than checking on Ms. Polanco every 15 as required, they ignored her for periods of 35, 41, and 57 minutes in her last hours of her life. While some action is being taken now, it's still a year later. It still took them a year in publicity to do something about this. Things like this are happening to trans women every single day. These are the ones that have been reported. However, there's so many more that are going on that we have no clue about because it's not getting as much media attention or as much police attention as they deserve. We need to look out for trans women. We need to look out for trans Black women. So that's all I got for you guys for this episode. Let me know what your thoughts are below and if I missed anything. If there's any cases that you know of that haven't gotten as much media or police attention or maybe remain unsolved, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. I would definitely love to talk about them in a future episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode.